Good morning and welcome to the Mindful Bird Sit with Bird Mentor. Today we're going to be exploring a practice that I just love to do with groups of people when we're all on the same landscape, but it's totally fine for us to do today individually in our own places because really beautiful things can emerge when we dive into this together. So let's get going. First, I have a story I want to share with you. So I got inspired by this idea this morning, and then as I usually do, I said, let me practice it, let me just try it out. And so I sat still for a moment and was listening, and very quickly, I was just tapping into the sounds and sights around me. I was actually inside at this time, so I thought I was going to need to be inside because of the storm. And I was listening to some of the bird songs and whatnot, and then all of a sudden it just got quiet. Got really quiet, and there was a mourning dove that was on the neighbor's roof, and the mourning dove flew down and away. And I thought, huh, that's interesting. Actually, I think what happened first was the mourning dove flew down and away, then it got silent. And I just got really curious. And then a moment later, I didn't see who it was, but I saw the silhouette and a little bit of a wing of a raptor fly over that house, the roof of that house. And I thought, how cool, you know? If I hadn't been paying attention, if I hadn't been attentive in that moment to the different sights and sounds, to the baseline, right? I was listening for what is the baseline? What's the story of this moment? Then if I had just started listening, I might be like, oh, it's just kind of quiet. It's really hot out right now. Maybe the birds just aren't singing, you know? And I might not have even noticed the raptor fly by. But because I started tuning in and I heard the song prior to that, I was able to be prepared that there might be someone coming by, right? That silent, that sudden silence after there being song from various birds all over and the flight of the dove keyed me in that there was likely some raptor around. And I was just lucky enough to see it because who knows, it could have been anywhere, in any of the trees, and it could have chosen to fly in a different direction. But it was a beautiful moment. Yeah. So go ahead and set yourself up on the landscape or where you can see a nice vantage point, and in particular here. If your view isn't that great, it's okay, but the hearing is going to be probably the most important, but visual is great too. So we're going to be sitting in time blocks today, and I want you to tell the story in your mind of that time period, as if each time period is going to be unique in and of itself. It's going to have its own story to tell. So kind of think of, as we're listening and as we close one chapter, I want you just to think of the theme. Like before you head your mind into the next chapter, think what was the theme of that last period, and then let yourself move on. So let's begin. So go ahead and take a nice deep breath in and let it go. Just settling yourself right now, putting your feet on the ground beneath you, feeling your back in the chair or whatever you might be sitting up against. If you're not sitting up against anything, just noticing what your back body feels like right now. And if you are, notice the connection, the points that your back is connecting with the chair or the tree, whatever it might be. Noticing where your skin can feel the wind, or at least the air. Even in the most still times, you should be able to at least feel a little subtle movement. Might take a little bit more to feel if there's not much wind. But just notice which direction it's moving this morning. And then as you start to settle more, feeling yourself in this place today, right now, as you take another deep breath in, on your exhale, you're going to be going inward now. So we'll follow our breath for a moment, noticing how deep our breath travels inside of our body, and then letting it go. Again, allowing it to expand fully, deeply. Can you feel your whole lung capacity? And then exhaling completely. Do that a couple of times. And let's now join and find our heart rhythm. So the rhythm of your heart. We just tapped into our breath and our lungs. But now do your best to find your heartbeat. And just notice, it's okay. You don't have to, no judgment here. Just if it's quick and rapid, if it's erratic, if it's really steady and calm, you're just noticing. Good job. And now we're going to take our attention back out to the world around us, first beginning with our eyes. So finding a point off in the distance, letting your gaze settle on that and focus. And then once you've found your focus point, begin to soften your eyes. You've softened your gaze and expanding further and further and further outward in all directions. You're going to stretch your eyes so you can see, almost as if you want to try to see behind you. That's how far you want to stretch your eyes. And you'll notice that they may become blurry at this point. And just allow that to happen. And we'll sit here for just a moment in silence as you let yourself just settle into owl eyes. Good work. All right, and so allow yourself to continue to stay in owl eyes while we now tune our attention to our ears and what our ears are perceiving. And let's first start by stretching them. So as far off in the distance as you were looking, do your best to see if you can hear the sounds that are that far away in all directions. I'm going to mute myself so you don't have to hear my background noise. And it may help you. You can try this today. We're looking usually in front of us and trying to listen in all directions. But today, just while we start, go ahead and as you change the direction in which you're listening, go ahead and turn your attention in that direction too. So if you're looking forward or listening forward, go ahead and look forward. And then when you choose to listen in another direction, go ahead and turn your head in that direction and listen and look at the same time in that direction. Excellent. All right, so we're going to begin our practice now in the different segments. So just to repeat your assignment for this time period, you're going to just be staying in owl eyes as much as possible. And each segment is going to have a theme, but you're going to be listening for that theme, listening for that story. So Let's go ahead and observe with our eyes and our ears and just noticing what is the story of this time period? Who is around? What are they saying? What's happening? And I'll tell you when the segment is up. It'll be between 3 to 4 or 5 minutes. Okay, good job, everybody. So we're going to shift into our next segment. And just remember to wrap the first segment by thinking of the theme. So what was the theme of this first segment? And for those who just joined, we are sitting in silence for 3 to 5 minutes, and we're listening and observing what the story of that segment is. So listening to the bird calls, the animals, the people. And this is for everybody. Just remember all the different facets of nature. So remember what's happening with the trees, what's happening with the clouds and the wind, what's happening in the sky and on the ground. So tell the most complete story that you can for each segment. All right, we'll go again. We'll be in silence now. Wonderful. So let's bookmark that chapter and give it a title, give it a theme. And then as you transition into the next chapter, the next story, what I want you to do this time is to take yourself into an even deeper practice where you're going to explore the landscape. So it's really easy to get stuck or to want to stay with one sound or one sight. But I want you to keep moving as if you were going to get paid for every sound or sight that you notice. Okay, so every new thing you see or notice or hear, you're going to earn some money for that. All right, so go ahead and explore your land and listen to the story that this chapter has to tell. Lovely, 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 lovely. Okay, so let's give this chapter a name or a title or a theme. And now, as we move into our next chapter, so sometimes when you get an assignment like the one I just gave you, where you're going to keep moving, right? That can bring up a little anxiety, maybe a little pressure to keep going, keep going. So this time I want you to do the same thing, but instead of that pressure inside that you may feel, I want you to imagine that you're a woman in one of those beautiful old-fashioned dresses, and you've got some nice heels on, and you're going to go for a stroll, and you can't move very fast because it's a darn big, heavy dress. And you're just going to stroll beautifully, but you're going to keep moving because you want to keep strolling. So keep moving with your attention from one sound and one sight to another, but just do so in a beautiful, leisurely, strolling kind of way. And this will be our last segment, the final chapter of our story. Okay, good work, everybody. So first, go ahead and give that final chapter a name. So find a theme or a name for that final chapter. And then after that, go ahead and just take a moment to offer gratitude and thanks to all those ones that you interacted with today. So we'll just take a moment to do that. All right, good work. So would love to hear from folks what your experience was like going through this morning, kind of choosing chapter themes to these segments. Like, how different were the segments for you? How similar? And or just whatever story you want to share about this time for you. So if you want to share, just go ahead and put your hand up. And welcome to Bev and Nadine. Sorry, didn't get to welcome you before, but hello. It's good to have you here. Yeah, Jackie, go ahead. Go for it.
Right. Good morning, everybody. I haven't seen you in quite a while, so it's good to be back. So the themes that I came to or became aware of sitting here was to begin with the mockingbird doing his announcement at a couple of houses over up high in a tree. Following that, I have a wren, a Buick's wren that lives near my house. She came up on top of the maple tree and did her announcements at the same time as the mockingbird was doing that. And then I also have a scrub jay that nested in a corner of the yard. So he he or she joined in and was like, no, well, you can hear him now. They were feeding their fledgling a couple of days ago. So I'm, even though my yard is really tiny, but I'm by the river, I have a lot of activity. So that was, I would call it the morning announcements. And so I had even a titmouse nearby making that announcement. And then the second theme was very quiet, and then nuthatch over there, scrub jay over here, wren over here, finch over there. I think they were, I called it the, okay, now I'm going to look for some breakfast. I've made my announcement. I'm here. I'm going to look for breakfast. And then the third segment, everything got really quiet. And then I got to watch the scrub jay eating the plums from my neighbor's tree. So I figured, oh, everybody's quiet, so they must be eating. I don't know, but it was very quiet except for the scrub jay. And that was cool. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And actually, I want to, that's actually a good opportunity to just, dive into a little teaching here. So, I just shared a story with you about how my yard got very quiet, right? And then Jackie just shared a story where her yard got very quiet. But what do you notice was the difference? What was the difference between our two quiets? What stood out to you about the difference in the way our yards got quiet or what happened during the quiet time? Anyone want to share?
Sometimes when it's quiet, you can feel attention. At least I know because I have a lot of hawks coming through here. But because everybody had made their announcement and they were cheerful and they were upbeat, I didn't hear that they were stressed or concerned. So that's why I imagined it was just searching for food or eating food. It wasn't any fearful quiet.
Okay. Anyone else have thoughts? Like what stood out to you? What made you think that it sounded like all was well where Jackie was and where I was all was not well, right? There was a sniper in the neighborhood. So what would indicate that all was well where Jackie was? What do you guys think? There was one thing she said at one point. Remember? Anyone want to try? Yeah, go ahead, Claudia.
Yeah, she said that the jays were feeding on the plums. You could see them eating. They were relaxed.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. So if there was danger in the area, especially the jays would be one of the very first ones to figure out what was going on, especially because they have young, right? So she told us they have young and they were relaxedly feeding on the plums. And jays right now are on like heightened alert for their little ones, you know? So that's great. That was like there was a lot of really subtle things. She didn't maybe realize she was helping us like learn in that moment, but she totally was in the telling of her story. So yeah, what a wonderful, wonderful moment there, and just a few distinctions, right? With me, it was the yeah. So what was it for me, for you all? Do you all remember? Yeah, right. It was the dove that keyed me off. Now that what did happen? The neighbor was outside, and he was I think doing some pruning or something like that. So my first thought was before I heard the silence, I thought, oh, maybe that because doves are so skittish, they get scared about like you just like kind of glance in their direction and they fly away. And so I thought, oh, maybe the dove just flew because the neighbor walked by or something. But then it got silent, and so that like there was more of the story to be told, right? Great, awesome, that was a fun one. Okay, who else wants to share their experience from this morning? Yeah, Della, please.
There we go. Well, I had a lot of activity this morning. There's a utility pole in my backyard in the corner of the property that has a hole in it. I assume that the woodpeckers made, but there have been pygmy nuthatches that have nested there for at least 10 years. Yeah, since we moved into this house. And so, anyway, this morning, well, should I say the last few days, I've been watching and I've been counting maybe 3 or 4. And all of a sudden this morning, it seems like there's 10. And I'm wondering if I have fledglings. Well, I know I do, but I mean, I'm wondering if that number jumped so high this morning. Anyway, they're flitting back and forth from the utility pole to liquid amber tree and to the feeder and making lots of noise. It reminds me of a large family having a picnic at the park, and all the kids are excited, and they're all talking at once, and they're all cheerful and happy and laughing, and that's what it's like. And then the funniest thing, sometimes the a nuthatch will go in the hole and then come right back out. And I wonder, those of us who are over 50, we can, if we can relate to this, perhaps they go in the hole and forget what they went in there for. Anyway, so I kind of, they're just so much fun to watch. They're so funny. And then another thing they're doing this morning is they're hiding seeds. They come to the feeder, they get a nut or a seed, and they take it to the liquid amber tree and stick it in between the bark somewhere in plain sight. I mean, I can see it from here, 30 feet away. And I'm wondering, it reminds me of Easter egg hunt for toddlers, where you put the Easter eggs in obvious spots. So I don't know if they're doing that for the children, chicks, or what. But it's so much fun to watch them feed the chicks, because the chick will quiver. They just sit and they just, and then an adult comes and gives them something to eat. Anyway, that's what it was so much activity that it was hard to get beyond that. I have
So
more, but
cool, Della.
I'll let it
So
go
cool.
at that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, one thing I wanted to just sort of speak to is something that you mentioned about, you've had what, like 4 or 5 pygmies up until now that you've witnessed, and now today there was like 10, right? So
Right.
think about, and for everybody, those who maybe don't know about the pygmy nuthatch, you'll learn a little bit of something today. So those of you who do, who here has experience with pygmy nuthatch before? Anyone? No? I need some yeses, some nos. Okay, so Linda and Della. So those of you who know pygmy nuthatch, how is a pygmy nuthatch, not visually, not like the ID marking, but sort of behaviorally, how are they unique or different from like a white-breasted nuthatch? What's one of the ways that they stand out or are different? What do you know about them? Yeah, Linda, go for it.
Okay, got it. And I don't know if this is what you're referring to, but I have noticed that the pygmy nuthatches, I watch their posture a lot because they like to go upside down, no matter where they are, especially around feeders. And they also, they tend to perch and sit horizontally, more
Mm.
horizontally than, upright. And they're these little things, and they always come in a group. They always have a buddy, at least a few buddies with them. So, and I haven't noticed it about the white breasted comes by itself usually, or the one that comes to my area anyway. Comes by.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Yeah. So typically, the pygmy nuthatch are a flocking nuthatch. So they like to be in a group, right? Whereas
Mhm.
the white-breasted nuthatch, in all times of year except for right now when it's mating and breeding, it's a solitary nuthatch for the most part, right? And so I'm just curious, Stella, what it made me think is that I wonder if right now your pygmies are like gathering, right? If it's just like here's one family and another family and maybe another family, maybe there's multiple families there all together and they're sort of introducing their kids to the cousins, like you said, like a big old family picnic, so the vibe you were picking up on might be very, very accurate. Yeah. I don't know. I'd be curious to see, like, if you observe them more, if you can tell how many adults there are, how many young ones, and whatnot. But
Mhm.
that's a really fun moment that you just picked up on.
So, yeah, great
Yeah.
fun to watch them.
Yeah. So cool. Let's take one more. I have to run a little bit earlier today, but let's take one more story. Yeah, Claudia, go for it. Let's hear your story.
Okay, so I kind of saw different things. The first part of it, what I was mainly seeing was insects. And so like there was a dragonfly and there was a bumblebee and there were other bees and wasps and there were a couple of butterflies and little bugs that I don't know what they are. Anyway, it seemed like there were so many insects and I wasn't seeing or hearing much of birds. And then in the second segment, I started hearing more bird song and saw more birds. And so that was my first one was insects, second one was bird insects. And also in that segment, it's titled Who Let the Dogs Out? Because all of a sudden I'm hearing all these different dogs coming from different areas. And the children came out too. I was hearing children's voices. And then in the third one, I started really noticing there seemed like there weren't as many birds coming into the yard at that point, but the breeze picked up. And so I was noticing the effect of the breeze on the different leaves and plants and the clouds going by. So I was noticing things more generally like that. And then the last one, because I slowed down, I was noticing the effect of shadow and light on what I was seeing. And I love shadow. I love shadows and lights. And I was feeling more the breeze and more of a feeling. So I love the slowing down part too.
Oh, well done. Yeah, what a beautiful place to get to, where you don't even need these senses. You can just use your felt sense to tell you what's happening in the world around you. Yeah. How beautiful, Claudia. And sometimes it does take a little bit for us to sort of decompress and get grounded and get focused. And I also had a segment of Who Let the Dogs Out, except I saw Who Let the Dogs Out. Yeah. Yeah. But and so fascinating for me just to go through this with you all and to see how unique. Like it's only 3 or 4 minutes that we had each segment, but how unique each segment was. They really were their own individual stories and themes to a greater story. So I love doing that practice. It's so fun and yeah, the story of our yards, what a beautiful thing we can start to connect with. So thanks for playing today, everybody, with me and enjoying this day and the stories of your land. And yeah, let's do it again next week, okay? All right, everybody, have a beautiful week. I'll see you next time. Okay, bye.